Welcome to the International Lawyers Network's webinar series. The ILN is an association of 91 high-quality, full-service, and specialized law firms with over 5,000 lawyers worldwide, of which your firm is a valued member. The network provides clients with easily accessible legal services in 67 countries on 6 continents. Today's webinar, How to Use LinkedIn for Client Development, will offer you the opportunity to discover how to use social media to gain access to your target prospects and customize a LinkedIn strategy for your own objectives. Our speaker is David Ackert, President of the Ackert Advisory and mentor to high-achieving professionals in the legal profession. He has developed and implemented business development programs for countless firms, from AmLaw 100s to local boutiques. Widely recognized as an e-learning pioneer in the legal field, David is the founder of Practice Boomers, a business development e-learning program and 2-time winner of the Legal Marketing Association's Your Honor Award. He is also the founder of Practice Pipeline, a pipeline management software program that incorporates business development coaching. The combination of technology and coaching has become a hallmark of his programs. So I'd like to welcome David and turn the presentation over to him.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I just want to make sure you can hear me clearly. Is the audio coming through all right?
Yes, it sounds great.
Excellent. All right, let's get started. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to cover a few different items in our agenda today. First of all, we're going to look at social media with perhaps a broader lens, and then specifically drill into LinkedIn and look at why LinkedIn is so important, especially in the legal profession, as a client development portal and even perhaps a platform for identifying prospective clients and eventually bringing them into your practice. We'll look to tailor the goal to your LinkedIn strategy, because the fact is that there are a lot of things that you can do with LinkedIn and that you shouldn't try to do all of them. You probably just don't have the time or the bandwidth to do it, and nor is that a particularly efficient way to use your time online. So we'll look at how you can tailor your approach to your objectives so that your time spent in social media is efficient and effective. We'll also make sure that those of you who are blogging or tweeting are also getting a few tips in here so that you can either enhance your LinkedIn strategy with these other platforms, or at the very least you're aware of them. And we'll conclude with a social media strategy plan. I'll show you a template that I find to be particularly helpful, and perhaps you will as well. We should have a little bit of time at the end of this program for Q&A. So as you're going through the program, if you have questions, please type them into the questions box in your control panel there, and Lindsay will be keeping an inventory of those, and we'll try to get to some of them at the end of our prepared remarks. So we are aware of this evolution that has occurred in social media over the last 20 years or so. It initially started as this cool thing that people could use to just kind of connect with one another, especially Facebook. I remember when Facebook first came out, it was like, oh my gosh, that's what happened to that person that I went to high school with, or that person I went to college with, or that old ex-girlfriend, or whatever it is. So Facebook was useful for that, but really more as a social tool, not necessarily something that had a meaningful relationship or business outcome. LinkedIn came on the scene a few years later, and that was useful for expanding your Rolodex. Okay, well, I know Lindsay, and now I'm going to connect with her on LinkedIn. Not sure what that's going to do for either one of us, but at least now we have connected on this online professional network. And those were really the early years before either tool had a lot of functionality to it, and anyone had really figured out what they wanted to do with these things beyond just the trivial fun of it. Then as it began to evolve more, we started to see the rise of the bloggers, especially in the legal community, where lawyers were using blogging as a platform for distributing thoughts and comments and articles that perhaps are easier to just post online and try to get published somewhere. They can have a shorter format, which is certainly helpful for the lawyer that already has too many things on his or her plate and doesn't want to have to write a substantive article every week or every month just to get their name out there. This also contributed to this notion of becoming the go-to lawyer in a certain arena the more they blog, they find the more searchable they are online, and the more likely their brand or their reputation for a particular kind of expertise could be distributed out into the online community. We started to see company profiles on Facebook and LinkedIn, adding that functionality to the platform so that people could not only have personal identities, but they could start to have professional and even corporate identities as well. Obviously, most firms, law firms now have a company page on LinkedIn at the very least, and that's where you can get more of a bird's eye view of who that firm is and who some of the people who work at that firm are. And then we have ad buys. Facebook started that. LinkedIn is doing it now as well. So the idea being that, oh, all these people are building their network. Let's see if we can start to monetize this web of relationships. All of these fall into the category of one-to-many messaging. So what that means is I'm going to try to use this as kind of a megaphone, if you will, so that I can put some message out there and get as many people, many eyeballs on it as possible. And so that's really been the trend for, I would say, the last 5 to 7 years, up until perhaps a year ago when we started to see a lot more one-to-one messaging taking the lead in terms of how people are using LinkedIn. People started to realize, oh, you know, there's this new endorsements feature that came out a little over a year ago. People started to see this as an opportunity to say, well, in that case, I'm just going to endorse you for this or that skill. And this is a way of just saying, hi, I'm thinking of you. I think you're great in this particular arena. And so I'm just going to click on this box to let you know that. Now, this has ended up being kind of a mixed blessing because in some states, the Bar Association has actually said you don't want people endorsing you because, of course, one could endorse you for anything. It may not even have anything to do with your area of expertise. It could misrepresent you to your professional network. So they are not necessarily something that are going to be all that helpful to you. But it's a signal of the shifting, evolving trend that we're seeing with social media. A lot more in-mail is being sent statistically than it ever has been in the past on LinkedIn. In-mail is if you start to pay for a premium membership, you can send someone an email through LinkedIn, which is which doesn't require that you're connected to them. You can just send it to a stranger. So again, that idea of one-to-one messaging. We're also seeing a lot more targeted prospecting, both on Twitter and LinkedIn. People are following prospective clients and connecting with prospective clients in the hopes that they'll be able to start a dialogue with them and use it in a more targeted fashion than the prior sort of wave of one-to-many messaging. So we're going to drill into each of these a little bit more in detail, but just to give you kind of an overview of at least where I've noticed the trend going over the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years. So as we look at social media, obviously we're going to be focusing mostly on LinkedIn today, but it is important to recognize that LinkedIn is part of a constellation and that it's not necessarily the best platform for everything. You have to recognize that some of these other platforms may be also useful depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So if you are looking to be a big fish in a small pond, make sure that you post YouTube videos and tag them to your name and your firm, because while it is the lowest on this chart is rating social media platform most likely to yield a sale or a transaction in the United States. This is from a study done from Pardot Marketing a couple of years ago. YouTube rated the lowest, but it ranks very well in search engines because most people are using Google, and when they search for a particular thing, the number of websites that Google has to sift through to give them that short list on their first page is voluminous, but the number of videos that have to be sifted through is much shorter. And so the chances of you ending up with a decent Google ranking from a video perspective are higher than simply with your name or your website. If you have a consumer-facing practice at your firm, maybe there's a family law division, or if you're at a smaller firm and you're doing personal injury or something like that, then Facebook will probably be more useful to you than LinkedIn, simply because you are in a B2C, business-to-consumer market model. And so a lot of the people that you want to make sure you're staying in touch with are your aunt, your uncle, that old friend from law school or from high school or whatever it might be, because in those kinds of law, as long as someone is of a certain socioeconomic status, as long as they have a pulse and a legal problem, they're a prospective client. But mostly we see the legal profession gravitating to LinkedIn. Why is that? Well, obviously, again, based on this study, it's the most likely platform to yield a sale or a transaction, a referral, or interest in one's services. It's also the platform of choice for business to business. And most business-facing law firms where you're looking for corporate clients, you're looking for institutional accounts, are to be found through LinkedIn. So these three are obviously the highest rated on this chart, so we'll be focused on those, and we'll be specifically focused on LinkedIn. Why? Well, because over 78% of business decision makers use LinkedIn to search for a lawyer online. That's a statistic from a study done by the ABA fairly recently. So that's pretty significant, and some people are shocked to learn that, but it really makes a lot of sense. People say, well, no, I'm sure if someone is looking for a lawyer, you know, maybe they'll Google the person, or, you know, they'll probably go to the law firm website and they'll find the bio page, and, you know, that's going to be the thing that helps them make up their mind, right? Well, not according to the ABA. In-house counsel, business decision makers, they cite LinkedIn as being a more useful platform because, first of all, it has most of the same information that your law firm bio has. Most people's LinkedIn profiles are pretty robust these days with the various articles you've written and presentations you've given and the various areas of expertise in which you practice. But in addition to that, it also tells the LinkedIn user who they know, who knows you, and that's a very important piece of information. Does someone who I trust already know this person, or at least connected on LinkedIn? Because that will give me a little more comfort in my willingness to work with them. Also, have other people written recommendations about this person's work? Now, again, that's distinct from endorsements. Endorsements where you just click the little box and say, hey, so-and-so is a great litigator. That's pretty meaningless. But if you actually take the time to sit down and write out a few sentences where, yes, I engaged Jane Doe, she was excellent, she really helped us resolve this issue, or I've co-counseled with Jane, and here's why I think she's a really fantastic litigator, whatever it might be, that starts to carry more weight. We'll talk a little bit more about that recommendation section when we get to the profile building piece of today's program. But here's another reason why LinkedIn matters. So this is a study from Green Target. Every year, Green Target, an excellent consulting firm, they specialize, among other things, on their expertise in the social media and specifically LinkedIn space. They put out a survey, the State of Digital and Content Marketing, where they survey inside counsel. And look at what we found here. The top 5 factors that help inside counsel to research outside lawyers and law firms for potential hire are here. The one that by far is rated as very important by inside counsel is a referral from a source that you trust. Now, again, you don't get that referral value from a law firm bio page, but you do get it more from LinkedIn, where someone has actually said, I refer this person through my testimonial, through my recommendation that I'm writing here, or at the very least, through the fact that I am connected to them, and so I've had some dealing with them. So this is why LinkedIn starts to give the kind of insight that inside counsel and business decision makers are looking for as they're trying to make the right decision for the right lawyer to engage on a matter. So fine, let's agree that LinkedIn is a valuable platform. The ABA says so, Green Target says so, the inside counsel say so, the business decision makers say so, but let's also acknowledge that LinkedIn can be a colossal time suck. Any social media platform can be. You can find yourself on there tooling around saying, oh, look, I can connect to George and I can connect to Mary, and okay, well, you know, now I'm going to see who Mary knows, and oh, now I'm going to watch this video that Mary has posted to her LinkedIn profile, and before I know it, it's lunchtime. So what we want to do is make sure that you are being very efficient in your utilization of LinkedIn, especially because this is a very difficult thing to delegate. A lot of lawyers like to just say, you know what, I'm just going to let my marketing department or my PR department or my secretary or whoever it is, let them do all the LinkedIn stuff, and I'll just wait for the business to come in. But, ultimately, LinkedIn is a relationship management platform, and so you can't delegate the management of your relationships to other people, because then the relationship is with the other people. Ultimately, if you want to have a relationship with someone, you've got to do the relating. So that's why, again, this notion of efficiency becomes really critical in order for LinkedIn to be an effective and reasonable platform for lawyers. So the first thing you want to identify is, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? If it's to target prospects and referral sources, if you say to yourself, well, look, I'm thinking about my business development strategy or my plan here, and what I really want is to target a short list of prospective clients and referral sources. And if I can just develop that short list of key relationships, that will funnel business to my practice. So if that's the case, then you're taking this first strategy, this targeting strategy, to heart, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that will look like for you. On the other hand, you might be of a different mindset. You might say, I'm not the kind of lawyer who's going to, just candidly, I know myself, I'm not going to be that proactive and go targeting people. I just want to attract opportunity because I have a niche practice area, or I have a specialty area that, it's somewhat unique, and the business should be able to find me because, they're not just looking for a generalist. They're looking for someone who does what I do, and what I do is fairly specialized. So I should be able to use LinkedIn to attract these opportunities to me because people are out there looking for these opportunities. I just need to know how to do that more effectively. So we'll spend a little time on that strategy as well. Or you may be saying to yourself, no, I want to just brand myself more broadly. I want to make sure that as many people as possible know about me. I don't really have a business or a professional reputation beyond just that inner circle of contacts that I've managed to cobble together over the years. So I need to use LinkedIn as more of a billboard for me and my practice, get my name out there. This is especially relevant if you find yourself in a senior associate or junior partner role where you haven't necessarily developed that professional reputation beyond your immediate contacts, or perhaps if you're of counsel and just haven't put a lot of effort or emphasis into business development, and now the tenor is shifting at the firm and it's time for you to start to step up in that way. So again, LinkedIn can be very helpful as a means to get your name out there to a broader community. Again, we will talk about how to do that in more detail in a moment. And finally, again, know thyself. You may be thinking to yourself, gosh, when it comes to business development, this whole idea of going out and meeting new people and trying to get new prospective clients, it's just not for me. I've got a pretty good base of clients, frankly, and if I could just harvest the opportunities that are available to me from that network of great clients that I have amassed, I would be just fine. So then it becomes an opportunity to be of service and seek out the needs of clients and their influencers through LinkedIn. So again, we're going to look at all four of these strategies. Hopefully we have touched on, from at least one angle, something that is of interest to you, and as we drill into each of these, you'll start to identify takeaways that you can implement for yourself. By the way, this is not a strategy, and yet this appears to be the way that most people interface with LinkedIn. Over 50% of LinkedIn users are what LinkedIn defines as dormant. So here's how LinkedIn defines a dormant user. It's someone who has a LinkedIn profile. They've put their picture up there. They've invited a few people to connect when they first set up their account, and now they're just reactive. So when they get an email that says, David Ackert wants to connect with you, they click accept or decline, and that's the extent of their use of LinkedIn. So they are not what LinkedIn calls active users. Less than half of its member base are active users. Active users actually go on LinkedIn, they do searches, they look for specific opportunities to connect with other people and foster relationships with those people through LinkedIn. So make sure that you are not being a passive or dormant user, because if you are, you'll find that none of these strategies are likely to be all that helpful to you. So let's say you started to resonate when I just defined this target strategy, where you start to network deeply with a short list of referral sources and maybe key clients and other contacts. So the strategy here is you're only going to want to accept invitations from people from whom you would be willing to ask for an introduction. This is a question that comes up often. You know, I get invitations to connect all the time from all kinds of people. Some of them I know well, some of them I don't know so well, some of them are total strangers. Should I accept these invitations? I mean, isn't it good to have a broad professional network? Isn't it good when someone goes to my profile to see that I know 500 plus connections? Well, not if those 500 plus connections are fairly meaningless, and especially not if your strategy is to target a short list of people from whom you would like to get introductions, referrals, or engagements. So if your strategy is to be targeted in your networking, then you're going to find that having a smaller list of connections that are really meaningful, so that every time you go to LinkedIn and you search search for a particular kind of connection, that the suggestions that LinkedIn gives you in your first tier connections are all going to be viable options for you. So that's one tip for those of you who want to be focused more on this short list and using LinkedIn to do that. If for you, you were resonating more as I started to describe this notion of attracting opportunities to you because you have a niche practice, people are out there looking for this kind of work, and it isn't something that they're just going to find at every full-service firm, well, perhaps you want to develop a broad industry network. That means focusing on invitations and a LinkedIn network that are connected to the specific industry or specialty area that you have. So you're starting to build a network that has a theme to it, if you will, and that theme ties into your area of expertise. Someone who can have a relevant business opportunity to that specific niche practice that you've developed for yourself. If you're more of someone who wants to broadcast your brand, then you're going to want to use content for this. You can repurpose and serialize content regularly. This means commenting on other people's work, especially tastemakers or influencers, people who have broad networks and who a lot of people follow. Because, of course, if they start to see your name associated with their name, then that's that many more eyeballs on your commentary, on your content. And finally, if your approach was more along the lines of just being of service to your existing clients, then of course you want to connect with your clients, focus on their networks, make sure that they're connected to you on LinkedIn, and then start to seek out opportunities for them so that you can use your LinkedIn network as a means of adding even more value to that relationship. We're going to go through all four of these now in more detail, but I just want to give you at a very high level what each of these are going to look like in terms of how you will pursue a strategy based on that objective. It's the objective to target, to attract, to brand, or to be of higher service. And again, as I'll say later, you don't want to do all four of these, otherwise you're going to find yourself with a full-time job in front of your LinkedIn profile. So you'll want to start to prioritize which of these four are the place where you're going to put most of your energy. So you'll see in the upper right here this icon. This is related to the first one, targeting. Very simple process. Some people do this. A lot of people don't do this. But regardless, you'll find that if you're targeting, this is going to be a very good use of your time. So you are going to want to enter some keywords into the search box here that define the kind of person who you want to meet. So let's say I'm interested in meeting GCs at technology companies. I would click the advanced button here, which would allow me to filter this search so that I end up with a more specific list of individuals who are either going to be general counsel at tech companies or they're going to be able to connect me to general counsel at tech companies. And what LinkedIn will do is it's going to give me a list of first, second, and third tier connections. So the second and third tier connections for the purpose of this exercise are not going to be useful to you, so we're going to just focus on first tier connections. And sure enough, what I learned is that my friend Bobby here knows the GC of a tech company. This gentleman's name is James. James is a second tier connection because James knows Bobby, Bobby knows me. So here's where we need to get out of the 21st century and go old school. Once you've identified that someone in your network with whom you have a strong relationship, and again, this is why for this targeted strategy, you want to only be connected to people with whom you have a good relationship, with whom you would, someone from whom you would be comfortable asking for an introduction, you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to say, Bobby, hey, it's David. Listen, I was on LinkedIn, and I see that you're connected to James, who is the GC of a tech company. I do a lot of business with businesses in that sector, and I'd really like to get to know James. Let's brainstorm the best way to make that happen. And Bobby's going to say one of a few things. He's either going to say, you know what, I don't really know James that well. I'm connected to him on LinkedIn, but I don't have a strong relationship, so I can't help you there. Or James is going to say something along the lines of, yes, actually James and I are good friends, and I've been doing some consulting work for that company, or, I went to law school with James, or whatever Bobby's going to say. So, okay, let's set up a way to make this happen. And ideally, the three of you will do lunch together. Or ideally, Bobby will say, I happen to be going to a function where James is going to be there. Why don't I bring you along, and I'll make the introduction there. So you can come up with ways to make a meaningful introduction to this second-tier connection that goes beyond the, oh, well, why don't I just, next time I see James, I'll tell him to give you a call. Because, of course, that'll never happen. So, again, this is why when you have a targeted list of, that short list of targeted relationships who have a close enough relationship with you that they are willing to help you make meaningful contacts, LinkedIn starts to become a very powerful tool because it gives you an insight into who they know, and now that you know who they know, you can ask for introductions to those people. So we're going to take a quick detour over to Twitter because this is where Twitter becomes a very handy tool. Let's say that you and Bobby have come up with some sort of arrangement to connect to James. Maybe Bobby sent out an email initially just saying, James, I want you to meet so-and-so. I think the two of you have a lot of synergy, and in fact, I'm going to invite them to the function, or what if the three of us have lunch the next time, we're all in town, or whatever. So you're starting to get some dialogue going thanks to Bobby's help. Now you want to go on Twitter and look James up. And sure enough, James has a Twitter account. Fantastic. Good. So we're going to follow James simply by clicking the follow button here. And every time James tweets something, you want to retweet it. So what that means is you're basically taking James' tweet and you're re-commenting it to your database. It's a way of saying, hey, everybody, I think what James had to say is pretty great. Why don't you take a look at it as well? And so especially if James has written an article or James has been quoted in something, you'll want to blast that back out, because what typically happens on Twitter is that when somebody sees that you are being a fan of theirs online through Twitter, they tend to follow you back. And once they follow you back, you can start to send them DMs or direct messages. And this is a little bit like sending them an email, except it doesn't show up in their email inbox. It shows up in their Twitter DM feed, which is a much shorter list of messages. So rather than getting swallowed up in the 300 emails that James gets every day, you are now one of the 2 DMs that James gets on Twitter. And now you can start a dialogue with him. James, this was a great article. Biotech is definitely on the rise. I blog about it here. Why don't you take a look at some of my content? Now you are directing James at the things that you want him to see. Again, you're warming up this relationship for the lunch, the function, or however it is that you plan to meet James in person and start to foster this relationship. So Twitter can be a useful way to kind of warm things up on the sidelines. You'll also want to invite James to connect on LinkedIn, but do not send the boilerplate, I would like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. That is what a robot does to make an introduction. You're a human being. You're trying to create a human relationship here. You want James and you to develop a good professional dynamic. So make sure that you fill out this section here that allows you to include a personal note. You may want to reference whatever conversation you've already had with James on Twitter or whatever Bobby may have referenced in the email. You want to look on LinkedIn to see, oh, look, we also have somebody else in common, because now James sees, oh, we're already connected in a few ways. Well, that's interesting. You're already part of my professional network. You're not the total stranger I thought you were when Bobby made the introduction. And always conclude with a question. You always want to end this interaction with a question, because then, of course, it prompts James to respond. And now that you and James are in a pattern of responding back and forth, you're going to find that you have a much better angle on developing a relationship than if you had just sent him that robotic request for a connection, which he could just accept or decline, and then that's the end of that. let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn alerts. Again, we're still in this section of targeting. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that icon, targeting that short list of relationships and nurturing that list, getting as much out of it as possible. So LinkedIn alerts come out on a fairly regular basis. That's the email that LinkedIn sends out, I think, weekly, where they'll say, hey, it's John Doe's 4th year work anniversary. Why don't you congratulate him? And I think most people just delete that because they consider it to be spam. So what that it's John Doe's 4th year work anniversary? I doubt he wants to hear from me about that. And you're right, he doesn't. And he doesn't care that you know that it's his birthday either. However, I've used LinkedIn alerts very effectively simply by speaking to the elephant in the room and saying, hey, John, it's David. You know, we haven't been in touch for the last few months or years or whatever it's been. You know, LinkedIn sends this silly alert that tells me it's your 4-year work anniversary. Big deal. But at the very least, it put your name and face back in front of my radar. And so I thought I'd use this as an excuse to reach out and say hello. Why don't we grab a cup of coffee next week? So you see, LinkedIn basically is using the alert as a way of saying, look, you have 500 plus connections. There's no way you're thinking about all of those people throughout the course of the year. So LinkedIn has created a very clever way of putting each of those people in front of your radar every day. You're getting a steady diet of review of the contacts in your LinkedIn database. What you do with that steady diet is up to you, but my encouragement is, especially if you have this targeted approach, you probably don't have 500 plus connections, or at least not meaningful ones. You have a shorter list of connections that are meaningful. And so every time LinkedIn pings you and says, hey, don't forget about Sally, make sure that you follow up with that and simply use the LinkedIn alert as an excuse to reach back out to Sally, grab lunch, touch base, whatever it might be. You'll also find that LinkedIn alerts will send you a notification that so-and-so has changed companies. Be wary of that because LinkedIn has kind of a silly algorithm in place that tells you whenever someone has made a change on their profile, and they position it almost as if it's a career change. It just means that, you know, Sally may now be on the board of some charity. She still works at the same company that she always did. So don't go sending Sally a congratulatory note that, you know, she's now with City of Hope. It just may mean that she happens to be sitting on the board and she changed some minor detail on her profile. And of course, you know, now everybody's overreacting to it. All right, we're still in the targeting section here. Let's talk about another strategy you can use. This also incorporates blogging. So for those of you who blog or would be interested in blogging, you can use this as a way of leveraging these relationships. So the first step here is to approach one of your best clients or referral sources and ask them to contribute to your article or blog. So, you know, most lawyers, when they blog, they just opine on a particular law or regulation or strategy. And that's fine, but you're not going to get as much out of it as you are if you take a more journalistic approach. So the journalistic approach is to say, yes, you know, I have an opinion on this and I know something about this, but I want to hear the client's perspective too. I want my referral sources perspective also represented in here. I want this to be a more journalistic, more well-rounded blog entry on a particular topic. So because I'm taking this approach, I'm reaching out to you, client, or you, referral source, to see what you have to say about this topic. And the interview is going to be pretty straightforward. You know, they'll send you a quick email with their commentary, or perhaps you want to pick up the phone since this is somebody who's probably important to you, and just ask them a few questions and help them shape their comments so that it fits into whatever it is that you are saying in your blog. And then when you're done with that, you say, okay, well, this was really helpful, actually. It's going to provide another perspective on this topic. You know, I'd like to get 2 or 3 other perspectives as well. Can you think of anybody who might be appropriate to also contribute to this article or this blog? And hopefully they will come up with someone for you. They'll say, well, actually, yeah, you know, there's somebody else in my legal department who knows a lot about this. Let me put you in touch with them. Or, yeah, you know, I happen to have a friend who works at the company across the street here. They're a strategic ally of ours. Why don't I put you in touch with them? Because I know they're always looking for PR opportunities. But regardless, what you're doing is you're using this authorship opportunity as a way of penetrating their network more effectively. You know, you're not soliciting anybody for work here. You're just asking for a quote that you can use in a piece that you're publishing. You'll get even more traction here if this isn't a blog and it's something that you're actually planning to publish in a traditional outlet, because of course then that gives them a little more credibility. If you can do the interview in person, especially with the new contact, that's even better. because, of course, part of the point here is for you to get to know them and develop something of a relationship. Once you're done with the article, you can post it to LinkedIn so that your community sees the kind of company you keep and the kinds of people who are willing to contribute to something that you author. And, of course, if you're publishing it in a magazine or a trade publication of some sort, even better. Make sure you thank your interviewees. You want this to be a positive experience for them. You can thank them in whatever way you deem appropriate. You could send them a note card or a Starbucks card or, you know, a thank you note or a bottle of wine, whatever it is that you feel is appropriate and ethical. But make it so that the next time you pick up the phone and say, hey, you know what, I'm writing another piece. I'm wondering if you'd like to contribute again, that they are not only eager to do so, but they're also happy to connect you to others in their network. The targeted blog, a slightly different take on this. This is where you're using the blog to showcase your expertise on a targeted prospect. So the first thing you want to do is research your prospects. I would assume you have some prospects. If not, LinkedIn will help you identify them through the exercise that we just went through, where you type general counsel technology or whatever your prospect, however you would describe your prospect, into the search field. And then as soon as you encounter an issue that you feel you could address for your prospect, you would write a blog that references the market conditions and industry trends that are affecting that company and then prescribe some sound advice. So essentially what you're doing is you're writing a blog for an audience of one. It doesn't matter how many other people see this blog. All you care about is that the prospect who you've researched and whose problem you feel you understand will see this blog. So, of course, then you will contact them, let them know you recently authored a blog that they would probably find useful given this regulation or given this change in the law or given this fact that you've just learned through your research online, and then connect with them on LinkedIn so that they can see the piece that you've posted to your profile. Again, this is just a great way of introducing yourself to them as a subject matter expert and as someone who just happened to be writing something that is relevant to their needs. All right, so we're going to move on to attracting now. Remember, this is the second strategy of the 4 that I went over in the beginning of the program. So now you're looking to attract people to you because you have subject matter expertise, you have a niche practice or an industry focus that would allow you to corner that market a little more effectively than you would if you were a generalist. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your profile is 100% complete. This is true, by the way, regardless of which strategy you're trying to employ, because LinkedIn, the profile now has become the 21st century resume. Everyone's looking at it. If you look at where most of the traffic to your law firm webpage comes from, it comes through LinkedIn. So make sure that your profile represents you professionally. If you have a specialty, underscore it in your description. And don't make your profile a laundry list of capabilities. We see this a lot among lawyers. You know, you're uber competent in a lot of different areas. You can do a lot of things pretty well and maybe 2 or 3 things very well. I would emphasize the 2 or 3 things that you can do very well. And think of them in terms of headlines, because no one's going to pour over your 9-page LinkedIn profile. The more features LinkedIn adds to these profile pages, the longer and more cumbersome they become. So you really want to think in terms of headlines like newspaper headlines, and add multimedia to your profile. SlideShare is a great resource that allows you to upload a PowerPoint presentation. So if you've recently given CLE on a particular topic, especially that relates to your area of expertise or your niche practice, put it up there. If you have a video of yourself presenting on a topic, then put that up there as well. The reason multimedia is something that I would really recommend is that, first of all, UI studies, user interface studies, show that multimedia increases the amount of time spent on a web page by a factor of 4 or more. So they're going to spend 400% more time on your profile if you have multimedia on there. Makes sense, right? Because if I'm skimming someone's profile, I can do that in about 4 seconds. But if they posted a video, I'm likely to click on that. And if the video is 35 seconds long, well, then I've just spent a lot more time getting to know that lawyer than I would have if I was just skimming the page. Also, multimedia-enriched profiles are still underutilized by the legal profession, so take advantage of this before your competitors do. Most people just copy-paste their bio and expect that to be a sufficient representation of their capabilities. But multimedia is a very effective way of giving a richer and more robust sense of what it is that you do and how you can be of help, particularly in that niche area that you're looking to promote and attract to you. Use groups, join groups that align with your areas of interest and expertise. These are discussion groups. There's a discussion group for just about everything under the sun at this point on LinkedIn, so you want to make sure that you are engaged in those. Post questions to the group to vet potential contacts. So if you post a question about a particular issue that you're interested in having a dialogue with, that's all well and good. You'll have a discussion, but really what you're doing is identifying who responds. Because if someone gives a substantive and impressive response to a question that you post on a discussion group, why then you've just identified somebody else within that industry or that niche that you should probably connect to and start to foster a relationship with, especially if it looks like they are a tastemaker or an influencer in that sub-community. You can also start a group to attract appropriate connections for dialogue and follow-up. This is a long-term strategy, but it's one that can be very effective. You now are the moderator of a group. You can make sure that your competitors are not joining the group. You can foster discussions within that group. You can invite prospective clients, referral sources, and existing clients to that group. And now you basically have a personal forum where people are listening to what you have to say and they're commenting on it, and you can pique their interest on whatever it is, again, that you have this special niche expertise in. Participation in groups, whether it's yours or somebody else's, is 3 times more likely to drive relevant traffic to your profile. Why? Because people say, oh, Larry just said something really interesting on such and such a topic. I don't know Larry, let me click through to his profile. They click on the picture or the name and bam, they're looking at your profile and getting to know Larry better. So this is why participating in groups is much more likely to attract these opportunities to you. Again, we're in the theme of attracting business to your profile here. All right, we're going to switch gears over to this notion of broadcasting or branding yourself using LinkedIn. So we've already talked about the notion of a blog. A blog can be repurposed into a media pitch, into an article, put a few extra paragraphs on there, and now you have an article that you can repurpose. It can become a client alert you can distribute to your client network. You can turn it into a webinar, as I'm doing here. This topic that I'm speaking to you on, I've also blogged about. I've also written articles on. So this material has become a very efficient way of my being able to help other people and share some of my expertise. You can also turn it into a CLE presentation. So consider that anytime you create content, you can repurpose it in all these different ways. And all of these things can be posted to your LinkedIn profile so that people see, my goodness, this person really is an expert on LinkedIn. I mean, look, they wrote an article, they wrote a blog. I'm looking on LinkedIn and now they're promoting a webinar. I'm looking on LinkedIn and oh, look, they're giving a CLE presentation, and that slide share from the PowerPoint deck has been posted to their to their profile. So now I can click through it. And when they did their webinar, they recorded it and they posted that video up there. Boy, this profile is getting very robust. This person must know a lot about LinkedIn. So you see, in this way, you start to repurpose and broadcast yourself as someone who knows something about a particular arena. Also, your blog can find its way onto your firm website, assuming that your firm has a blog role that is appropriate to whatever it is that you've authored. You can send it directly to your firm contacts through LinkedIn or just directly through email. And you can also look into syndication services that get it out online. JD Supra and Lectology are examples of that. All right, let's talk about the co-authored blog. Now, this is, again, another way that you can promote and brand yourself to a broader community. What you want to do is you want to identify an ally, somebody who is a referral source, or perhaps there's somebody within your firm who you can co-author something with, maybe somebody who is known for their expertise in X or Y or Z, and you would ask them to co-author a blog post or an article, something that you can cross-promote to each other's networks. Of course, this will allow you to affiliate your name with theirs, and especially if you're willing to do all the heavy lifting, it's something that someone who is perhaps more senior and more established would be willing to collaborate with you on by way of mentorship or by way of some other collaborative arrangement because, of course, you know, they're going to get their name out there and you're going to do all of the writing. You turn the co-authored blog then into a joint presentation that you offer into each other's networks. You can say to them, look, you invite 20 people, I'll invite 20 people. We'll now have 40 people in the room, and each of us will have 20 prospects or referral sources that we're presenting to. That's a pretty good use of time. That's a pretty good audience. And it all started with a blog or an article that you decided to co-author. So again, a great way to get yourself out there, to brand yourself, to promote your brand to the network. You can use the blog to tease the live presentation. Hey, everyone, we would really like you to attend this event, and here's a quick blog to give you some highlights on some of the things we'll be talking about. That way they know that they're in for a meaningful presentation. And this takes us to the fourth LinkedIn strategy, the idea of client service as a way of using LinkedIn to help your clients and to attract more business through that network of clients. So obviously the first step here is connect with your clients on LinkedIn, follow them on Twitter if Twitter is something that you're willing to invest a little time in, and then ask them about their key business needs. Now, this strategy will only work if you really understand what your clients need. Now, many lawyers tend to operate as hired guns. They wait for the phone to ring. My clients know where to find me. And, you know, they'll pick up the phone and they'll say, okay, we've got another piece of litigation that we want you to work on. This strategy won't work so well if you're going to take that myopic an approach. What you want to be doing is getting out in front of your clients' problems, asking them questions like, you know, what are some of your 5-year goals? What are some of the initiatives that you're working on right now? What are some products that you're trying to develop or thinking of rolling out? You have any acquisitions that you're considering? So you start to ask these kinds of questions of your client so that you can really be a strategic advisor, someone who is a trusted business advisor to the client. And once you have a sense of these needs, then it's very easy for you to go into your LinkedIn network and identify someone who can help them with that acquisition or can help them roll out that product. Or, you know, I looked on LinkedIn and sure enough, I know someone who is an R&D expert, and perhaps they could be helpful to you as you start to develop this new product or initiative. Make sure you've set up Google Alerts. For those of you who have Manzama accounts, then you already have a great resource to give you this kind of market information. But at the very least, set up Google Alerts so that you are aware of media flare-ups. If there's something happening in or around your client's space or at the company, it will show up in media, it'll show up in social media, and Google Alerts and Manzama will give you an insight into that so that you can, again, get in front of the problem, pick up the phone. Hey, listen, I see that people are, you know, there's something trending on Twitter here, or there's an article that just came out that's of concern to me with regard to your industry or your company. Let me see if I can help either through my own services, someone at my firm, or let me go into my LinkedIn network and find someone who will be able to help you. Then you can match content and connections to their needs. So if you're authoring something, you're authoring it for this audience of clients because, of course, they are your best prospects. For many lawyers, they seek to get most of their business through their top clients, and so their LinkedIn strategy can align with that intention. Here's something else that you'll find on LinkedIn, which is that you're not just searching people on LinkedIn. It's also a database of job postings, of companies, groups, universities, and there's all kinds of things that you can search just by clicking this drop-down menu to the left of the search bar. So I did this exercise recently, and I was really surprised at what I found. I just typed in corporate counsel. I wanted to see if I knew any corporate counsel positions that were open because a friend of mine was looking for a job. And sure enough, I found that there's a company called Sunrun out of San Francisco that's looking for corporate commercial counsel. So, of course, then I was able to pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, you're in San Francisco. Sunrun is looking for this position, and I happen to be connected to the person who posted this job posting. So I know them well enough that I can pick up the phone and make an introduction and maybe help you get an interview. Would that be helpful to you? Of course, they were very grateful to me for that, as they would be to you. Now, if you're looking for a new client, then one of the best ways to get that new client is to put them in their job. Because then, of course, they will be grateful to you as well, and the likelihood of them sending work to you as appropriate goes way up. So this is just another way that you can be of service. Again, we're still in this strategy of being of service to your clients so that you can identify opportunities in that way. So let's zoom out a little bit here and talk about your daily plan of attack. Like any business development activity, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So you want your LinkedIn searches to be a regular routine. Consider that this is a numbers game. You can't just do this once or twice and say, oh, didn't work. I guess Acker doesn't know what he's talking about. You've got to do this a bunch of times, obviously, especially if your LinkedIn database has become populated with contacts that are not all that relevant or not all that close to you. Then you're going to get a lot of search results that are something that you'll just want to ignore. But consider that the search results will be dynamic. So let's say that I did a search today on, corporate counsel technology. I'm going to get a list of first-tier connections, people who either work in those positions or know people who work in those positions. If I do the same search a week from now, I'm going to get a slightly different list, even though I haven't added any contacts to my network on LinkedIn, because my contacts have added contacts. So you see, this is an ever-evolving resource, and that's why doing these searches repeatedly, even if you are using that first strategy of targeting and you're not necessarily going to be adding a lot of new people to your database on LinkedIn, you'll find that the search results will vary and provide new opportunities. One thing that I think is really useful here is just to ask yourself, what is a reasonable recurring LinkedIn activity for me? Is it to search the contacts of my connections? Is it to search for various opportunities using the search bar like I showed earlier? Is it to post to discussion groups so that I can start to vet other contacts that I should be connected to and perhaps begin dialogue with prospective clients who might be having the problem that I posted in my discussion? Is it to post content? What is that reasonable recurring LinkedIn activity? But once you have the answer to that question, then it really helps you to design some sort of routine, some sort of daily repeatable process that you can focus on so that you have reasonable results over time and that you have a reasonable plan of attack. Also, if LinkedIn is something that you're just not as involved in, but now that you've seen this webinar, or perhaps you've already been thinking that you should probably get a little more engaged with LinkedIn, then you can simply make LinkedIn your homepage. That way, every time you open your browser, bam, there it is, and you're seeing some of your contacts kind of scroll by on the feed, who's connecting to who's posted content. LinkedIn is doing a lot of really interesting content syndication right now, so you'll probably see some interesting articles about the news and various other things that would actually make it a relevant homepage anyway. All right, so as I said before, we talked about targeting, attracting, branding, and serving. Don't try to do it all. Choose a primary LinkedIn goal and a manageable number of strategies to accomplish it. Hopefully the strategies that you've heard in this program today will help you to focus on one of these and start to get some traction. But I do recommend that you prioritize rather than try to do all of it. It just won't be manageable for you. I do think it's a good idea to have a social media strategy plan. This is just an example of what that grid might look like. Let's say you have 2 clients that you plan to use social media to help to maintain that relationship and to bolster that relationship. So there's target 1 and there's target 2 here. And you want to know specifically who the recipients are. So for target 1, it's going to be Jane Doe. She's the CEO at this mid-sized company who we do a lot of work for. And at target 2, that's going to be Mandeep Patel, who is the GC of another company that we do a lot of work for. Content, we're going to want to send out 3 articles a month or 7 articles a month or, 8 client alerts and, at least 1 webinar, whatever it is. Make sure that you've designed something around each of these top clients based on the outcomes and based on what you think they need and what you think they'll respond to. The frequency, once a month, once a week, whatever it might be. The intended outcome, why are we doing this? This is such an important question. I think a lot of law firms get engaged in social media without stopping to ask themselves, why? Is it just because you're supposed to? Everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it too? Really look at what the intended outcome is. How will we know that all of this energy that we're putting into social media was worthwhile? Is it that we'll get some sort of comment from them like, hey, we really appreciate the stuff that you sent over, or is it that they will attend your client events more regularly, or is it that you have asked them, what is it that you want from us in terms of content? You know, we can send you something weekly, we can send you something monthly, we can send you something daily. What would you like? What would be helpful to you? And they've said, oh, no, we want something weekly. And so the intended outcome is to satisfy their expectations. That's a very noble thing for a law firm to be engaged in, is to satisfy your client's expectations. But of course, first, you need to understand what those expectations are. And then let's look at leading indicators of success. How will we know that we are satisfying their expectations early on? Now, of course, if they said send us something weekly and you send us something weekly, then that's a pretty accurate indicator. But in some cases, it may not be quite so cut and dried. And so putting some thought into how will we know that we're on the right path, especially in something as intangible as social media, is a useful inquiry for a firm to engage in. All right, so that brings us to the end of the agenda. We're going to go into Q&A here in a moment, but we've covered why LinkedIn matters. I've given you 4 goal-oriented strategies for LinkedIn, those being targeting, attracting, broadcast or branding, and then finally service. Giving you some tips for those of you who are blogging and tweeting, and a recommendation for a social media strategy plan, that template. Some of you asked if this PowerPoint will be made available. Yes, Lindsay and her team at ILN will be making this available to you via a PDF after this program, so you'll have access to that. Lindsay was kind enough to introduce me at the beginning of the program. She mentioned a couple of things that we do. I thought I'd say a word or two about them, and then we'll move into Q&A. The first is Practice Boomers, which is our business development e-learning and coaching program. This is a platform that we use to train lawyers on business development, especially those lawyers who are in their senior associate, junior partner phase and really looking to develop those skill sets for developing business. A lot of the material that I just shared with you comes from this program. We also have performance tracking, and we provide consistent ROI to law firms. So happy to share more with you about that at another time. Our other platform is called Practice Pipeline. This is a pipeline management tool for lawyers. It's something that lawyers have a lot of success with. We have over a 70% adoption rate. It's a good alternative to CRM because the lawyers actually use it. And it includes coaching for discussion and problem solving. So you can go to Accurate Inc. And learn more about these programs. Happy to talk to you about them at another time. And let's move into Q&A and make sure that your questions are being answered. So Lindsay, I'll turn it back over to you. We have a few minutes. Why don't you let me know some of the questions that have come in, if any.
Great, thanks, David. We do have a couple of questions. The first one is that you were talking about the media links to profiles, and the question is that obviously there must be quite a lot of media that's of very poor quality. Would you have any suggestions for types of media and or production that may be better than others?
You know, that's really, I have to profess, that's not an area of expertise of mine. That would be a good question for your PR firm or PR professional. It's also going to vary from region to region, from country to country. So I don't want to mislead anyone with an answer that's not going to be helpful to them. I would say that that's, you know, it also depends on what practice area you're looking to promote and what your objectives are from a media perspective. So I would defer that to a PR professional so that they can really help you design what it is that you're trying to accomplish in the media, and then you can start to tie the specific outlets to that objective.
Great, great. Yeah, I'd agree. And then the other question that came in was, you talked about co-author blogs and working with a colleague on developing something there to share some of the workload. Is that something you might even recommend for attorneys and lawyers working with clients and potential clients on?
Absolutely. So you want to make sure that you select your co-author, whether that's somebody internally or externally, or whether it's from the client side or referral source side, but choose them wisely, because not everyone is going to be interested in this kind of thing, but, you know, it never hurts to ask. And you'll find that there are a lot of people. So imagine you're in-house. Imagine you're an in-house lawyer, and you're working at a company, and you're in a legal department. And, you know, you recognize that there will come a day when you'll probably want to switch to another company. You'll want to change jobs. You'll want to, you know, you'll be looking for advancement opportunities, or maybe you're getting a little stagnant at this company and you're looking to shake things up a little bit. So you recognize that having yourself published out there will only bolster your opportunities and bolster your interview with the next company when the time comes for that process to begin. So when the law firm that's working with you comes to you and says, hey, listen, there's a particular topic that we're going to author. We'd really like you to, co-author on this. We'll give you, authorship co-credit. And then we're planning to distribute this to whatever it is, lawyers.com or to, a publication or to the Los Angeles Times or New York Times or whatever it is. Now, that person would be foolish, I think, to say no to that unless it's just really not part of their career strategy. But you'll find a lot of people, when that kind of thing falls in their lap, are very interested in engaging in the dialogue. And at the very least, they would appreciate being thought of, even if it isn't something that they're going to invest time into.
Great, great. Okay, I don't see any other questions, but if I get any in, I will refer people to you, and I'm sure everyone can see David's email address there on the screen. As he mentioned, he's going to be making the presentation available, and I've also recorded the session, so I'll be circulating that to everybody as well. So please feel free to share that with your colleagues or watch it again if you'd like to get a little more out of it. And as you may know, we have 3 more sessions coming up with David. We're doing one in June, one in July, and one in August. Our next one will be on June 9th. Effective client site visits, and that will be at the same time, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we look forward to speaking with David next month. And thanks so much, David.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you all for joining us.